This is a Navy flight deck officer. Without him, no plane takes off from this aircraft carrier. Check how he kneels and gives a sign before the aircraft zooms off. This is one thing you'd always see on carriers like these. But wait, there's more. Look at these other officers too, doing different hand signs and body gestures. Navy officers use a variety of hand signs and gestures to communicate. Kneeling is just one of them. You'd also observe that the sailors who typically kneel and point in a direction before a plane takes off have a yellow uniform color. These officers are some of the most important on any flight deck. Let's look at some of the different personnel, their color codes, and their various hand signs or gestures. Shooter. A shooter's role is to inspect a plane to ensure everything is okay before takeoff, and to give the final takeoff signal. It takes special training and experience to be a shooter. Most shooters are flight officers or pilots themselves. Their name, shooters, comes because of the familiar pose they make when signaling a plane to take off. Shooters also have to run pre-flight checks. Check the catapult, wind speed, and other things necessary to launch an aircraft successfully into the air. Shooters usually shoot their boots every time they complete a tour and climb up the ranks. Flight directors. These are another set of sailors you can find with a yellow shirt, though not always. Flight directors oversee and direct aircraft movements on the hangars or flight decks. These officials are important to prevent ships from crashing into each other on the deck while approaching their hangars. Flight directors weave the most complex hand signs and often use yellow wands to direct aircraft. If you see anyone in a green shirt standing around a plane, that person is a catapult and arresting gear crew member. These guys do tasks like maintaining the air wing, handling cargo, and providing necessary ground support equipment. Usually, these crew members have to wait on the catapult for the next plane to come up so they can fire it. Ordnance handler. If there is any casualty or mishap during takeoff, these officers step in to handle it. Ordnance handlers are collectively called the crash and salvage crew. Quality assurance officer. These guys are usually found working with the catapult crew. However, their clothing is quite different. QA officers are usually dressed in white. Before launching an aircraft from the catapult, the QA officers must run a quick inspection to ensure there are no leaks or issues with the aircraft. All of these flight deck workers use various signals to communicate, and most times, it doesn't involve kneeling. The signs may seem identical for a regular person without knowledge of Navy operations. However, Navy sailors can see and detect the hidden meaning even in the most identical hand signs. And just so you know, these gestures are already established by the US Navy. If a sailor fails to do a sign correctly, it will get misinterpreted and probably lead to severe consequences. This is why serious and long-duration training is always given to trainees before they become full-fledged sailors. Signs used by Navy workers to communicate. One of the easiest signs to spot and understand is the thumbs up sign. The pilot usually gives this signal to let the air captain know he's ready for takeoff. The air captain can also be nicknamed Air Boss or Mini Boss. They typically run everything on the carrier from the perch on the flight tower. Air bosses have the privilege of wearing whatever color code they want. Once the pilot gives the thumbs up and the boss approves, a yellow shirt catapult officer will come up to take control of the aircraft. Another set of people that also use the thumbs up sign are the final checkers. These guys do the final rundown on the aircraft before the launch. Once the check is complete, they drop to one knee and give the thumbs up signal to the shooter to signify the aircraft is okay and the cat track is clear. You see, it doesn't matter if the plane is being launched, taxied, or towed. A yellow shirt must be there to control the movement of the aircraft. As we mentioned earlier, there are a standard set of hand signs and gestures in the world of aviation. However, you would mostly see officers kneeling. Here's why. But before we tell you, please subscribe to our channel to support us and spread the amazing stories of the Navy. On a typical flight deck, kneeling is a safety measure you must take to adequately protect yourself from getting sucked into the jet intake or blasted away by strong winds during takeoff. This is why you'd observe that sailors usually assume this stance when a plane is about to take off. There's been several accident cases in the past of sailors who casually stood close to a departing Navy plane and got sucked in during takeoff. This is one of the many risks of working here as a Navy sailor. Not many people survive such accidents. Another common sign you'd see on a Navy carrier flight deck is waving. Waving of the arms by an officer indicates taxiing, while bending of a single arm during taxiing signifies turning. Taxiing is simply the process of moving the plane after it has landed on the carrier. It is a necessary procedure for taking aircraft to the catapult or their respective hangars. These movements must be made when the engine is idled. Otherwise, the aircraft will sweep large amounts of thrust and throw people overboard. Once an aircraft is taken to the catapult for launch, the pilot is given the signal to spread the wings. This signal is a fully extended sweeping motion of the arms from the chest by the commanding officer or director. Next, the director will extend one arm, indicating it is time to drop the launch bar. At this point, the plane will taxi gently until the launch bar and the catapult shuttle are perfectly aligned. This alignment is very important for a successful launch. For fighter jets equipped with ammunition, the aircraft must be armed first before positioning it on the catapult for takeoff. This can be a very dangerous and life-threatening process. An ordnance or red shirt officer must necessarily be on site for this. During this process, pilots are mandated to keep their hands up and in view to ensure they do not mistakenly activate any of the weapons being armed. Once the red shirt has confirmed the pilot's hands are up, he'll communicate the arm up signal to the rest of the crew by extending both arms forward and putting one fist within the palm of his other hand. Once armed, the aircraft is taxied onto the catapult to begin taking tension. For this step, the director must also give the take tension signal. Once this has been completed and certified OK, the final director will transfer control to the shooter. The shooter, of course, comes to do nothing but shoot the plane into the air. He starts by frantically waving his hands in the air, indicating the run-up signal. With this signal, the aircraft pilot runs a final check of his instruments. Once certified OK, he salutes the shooter. After everything, you see the shooter drop to one knee and point forward to signify that the launch is a go. The procedures for a Navy aircraft after a touchdown are very different and less complicated than the ones for takeoff. Typically, as a pilot approaches the assigned landing spot, he'll see a yellow shirt standing by, tugging one of his thumbs backward. This sign indicates that he should reduce the throttle. Next, the yellow shirt director gives the hookup signal. This sign is communicated by putting one thumb in the open palm of the other hand. The pilot will give the air boss a thumbs down signal if the jet is down for maintenance. After this, the yellow shirt officer will direct a series of taxiing maneuvers until the jet is in position for installing the chokes and chains. Once the chokes and chains are installed at the director's command, the aircraft will be turned over to the plane captain or air boss. The basic reason why crew members mostly communicate with hand signs is because of the noise pollution on flight decks. The noise here is so high that you could go deaf if you don't wear protective ear pads like these sailors. Ear pads seal off sounds and noises on the deck, so sailors must communicate using signs and gestures. Remember to like and subscribe if you found this content valuable.